Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into the future of talent management. We're looking at the crossroads of employee experience, EX, we call it, and artificial intelligence, focusing on what things might look like around 2025. Our goal today, pretty simple actually. We want to give you a kind of operational playbook, drawing from the sources we've reviewed. Think of it as a guide for HR leaders looking to shift gears, moving from just reacting to things towards being more strategic, predictive, and AI is the engine for that. And this shift, it feels really urgent now, doesn't it? EX isn't just a nice to have anymore, it's critical for business. The talent market's tight, employee expectations are way up. And look, our sources point to some worrying Gallup data. Only 64% of employees see themselves staying put. That's down from 70% just a few years back. That's a big deal.
It really is. What's crucial to grasp is that employee experience isn't just about, soft skills anymore. It's landed squarely in the realm of measurable business results. We're not just talking about launching a new app or something. This is about tackling the retention crisis head on, understanding the real costs, financial, operational lock that poor EX creates throughout a company. You absolutely have to justify any tech investment with likely business outcomes.
Okay, let's start right there with the outcomes, because the true cost of bad EX, it's often more than just the obvious replacement cost, right?
Right.
What's the real scale of that financial impact we should be thinking about?
Oh, absolutely. The hidden costs are pretty big, and honestly, they often get missed. You have to factor in the whole cycle: recruitment spend, training time, that long ramp-up period before a new person is fully productive. When you add all that up, replacement costs generally land somewhere between, say, half and maybe even 2 times an employee's annual salary. If you've got significant turnover, that adds up incredibly fast. It really drags down profits.
Wow, up to 2 times salary. And on the flip side, the reward for getting it right. The sources talk about these experience-first organizations.
Exactly. And there's a clear link between engagement and actually keeping people. Think about this. High engagement teams, even in industries known for high turnover, see about 18% less churn than their less engaged peers. And in businesses where turnover is usually lower, the difference is even starker. Those really engaged teams see 43% less turnover. So investing in EX, it pays back directly by stabilizing your workforce costs.
And we see that hitting the bottom line, too. The sources mention companies with highly engaged people seeing, 19.2% growth in operating income over just 12 months. That's impressive growth. But I wonder, how well does that kind of result scale? Does it apply just as much to, say, a smaller company that doesn't have massive turnover issues?
Yeah, it's definitely scalable because the benefits kind of ripple outwards. Good EX boosts your employer brand, makes you more attractive, so you naturally pull in better candidates faster. And then if you layer AI recruitment tools on top of that stronger brand, our sources suggest you can cut your overall hiring costs by as much as 30%. Plus, fundamentally, engaged employees just provide better customer service. They tend to sell more. So that operating income growth, it gets amplified, whatever your company size.
Okay, that makes sense. And it brings us neatly to this core shift AI enables. Traditional HR, it's always felt a bit reactive, waiting for problems to blow up. But modern AI promises something different, making HR predictive.
Yeah.
How does that actually work in practice? What's the mechanism that takes us from reacting to, preventing?
It really comes down to the data modeling. Predictive AI isn't just like taking a wild guess. It analyzes patterns, how people use internal systems, communication frequency, engagement levels, how long since their last promotion or training opportunity, things like that. By crunching all these data points, these behavioral signals, the system can model the risk of someone leaving the flight risk with pretty high accuracy. Often it can flag employees who might be considering leaving long before they actually say anything. So HR shifts from just doing exit interviews after someone leaves to stepping in before they decide to go, maybe with targeted coaching or compensation review, proactive stuff. And another key thing is personalization. AI allows for interactions that actually feel relevant to the individual. It moves past those generic one-size-fits-all HR responses. If an employee asks about a policy, the system can understand their role, their department, their history. So the interaction feels efficient, tailored. It just reduces friction all around.
Right. Let's make this more concrete. Can we look at some specific real-world examples from our sources? How is AI actually driving results now? I'm thinking about those intelligent support systems first.
Yeah, that's often one of the easiest places to start, and the payoff in productivity is almost immediate. AI chatbots, basically. They handle the huge volume of routine questions. What's the policy on X? How do I check my benefits? Hi, IBM. did some research with their Watson X assistant. They found it cut the time employees spent on these common HR tasks by a staggering 75%. Think about that 75%. That's a massive chunk of admin work, just
Yeah.
gone. It frees up HR folks to tackle the complex human issues.
75% is huge. That really changes the game for efficiency. Okay, what about onboarding? That process is notoriously clunky.
Yeah, clunky is a good word for it. Smart onboarding aims to fix that. It transforms that paper-heavy, often confusing process into something much smoother, often self-service. AI can automate things like submitting documents, doing compliance checks, initial training modules. The sources we looked at suggest this can cut the actual time spent on onboarding tasks by 60%. But maybe even more important, it helps new hires get up to speed and productive 3 times faster. That's a critical metric, getting people contributing sooner.
That sounds fantastic. But I mean, implementing an AI that has to pull together training, compliance, maybe info from different departments, that sounds complex. What's the biggest hurdle to actually hitting that 60% reduction?
It almost always comes down to integration. Specifically, getting the AI to talk smoothly with your existing systems, particularly the main HRIS, the Human Resources Information System. And related to that, getting your data clean enough before you feed it to the AI. If your HR data is all over the place, stuck in different silos, the AI just won't deliver those seamless results. Data quality is key.
Okay, data and integration. Got it. And the third area you mentioned was performance optimization. AI is changing that too, moving us beyond those old annual reviews.
Exactly. Forget the once-a-year, often awkward feedback dump. AI-driven systems can support continuous feedback loops. They can spot skill gaps as they emerge. And then, critically, they can proactively match employees with the right resources, tailored coaching, maybe a mentor, specific training based on their actual performance and their stated career goals. It makes professional development ongoing, relevant, and tied to both the individual's needs and where the company needs to go.
All right, so if you're listening to this and thinking, okay, I see the need, I see the potential, you obviously need a plan to get there. Let's unpack the strategic roadmap our sources lay out. It seems to be broken down into 3 phases, roughly over a year.
Yeah, and having that phase structure is really important because honestly, it's usually the implementation complexity, not the tech itself, that causes these initiatives to stumble.
Makes sense. Let's walk through it. Phase 1, foundation setting. This is the first 3 months or so. Starts with a really honest look at where you are now, that current state assessment. Then identifying some quick wins. You mentioned chatbots earlier, things with high volume, pretty routine.
Precisely. Tackle things like FAQs or policy questions first.
Yeah.
Get some runs on the board quickly to show the value.
Okay, quick wins. But where's the really crucial strategic work in this first phase?
It's all about stakeholder alignment. The sources really hammer this point home because the biggest initial roadblocks are often internal. Skill gaps in your teams, and sometimes just fear of change, fear of being replaced. You absolutely have to get buy-in from HR, IT, and especially from managers on the front lines. That means starting AI literacy efforts right from day one. If leaders don't get how this helps them and their teams, they won't champion it. Adoption will stall.
All right, get the people on board first. Okay, then phase 2, pilot program launch, months 4 to 6. Technology selection is obviously big here. You mentioned integration, making sure it plays nicely with your HRIS communication tools. Beyond the tech itself, what's the make or break factor in this pilot phase?
2 things, really. Employee communication and defining clear success metrics. Transparency is absolutely key. You have to be upfront about what the AI is doing, how it uses employee data, and crucially, how privacy is protected. Building trust is non-negotiable. And then, the metrics. Don't just track how many people use the chatbot, measure things that matter. Did resolution times for HR queries go down? Did the self-service rate for finding policies go up? You need to prove it's actually making things more efficient.
Prove the value. Okay. Which leads to phase 3, scale and optimize. Months 7 through 12. This is where you take what worked in the pilots and expand it. And there's a focus on continuous improvement, using feedback, usage data. And this phase also starts looking ahead, doesn't it? Towards more advanced stuff, like using predictive analytics for future hiring needs.
It's exactly. Refining what you have and starting to plan for the next level of applications. But even with this logical, phased approach, you're going to hit challenges. Those skills gaps we talked about, they don't just disappear. You'll likely need ongoing internal training and probably need to partner with experienced vendors to fill the gaps, especially early on.
And we have to talk about the ethical side, specifically bias prevention. How hard is it practically to keep bias out when the data itself might have historical biases or the AI models are constantly learning? Is there a risk you overcorrect and limit opportunities?
It's definitely a challenge, and it needs constant proactive attention. It's not just a one-time audit. Organizations need to build vigilance into the system design. That means things like having diverse teams review the AI's outputs, especially for sensitive decisions like hiring or promotions. Our sources mention frameworks, like some from MIT, that emphasize regular testing with diverse datasets to actively find and fix bias patterns before they cause harm. It requires a systematic approach, and that ties directly into data privacy and transparency. This has to be baked in from the very beginning. We're talking strong encryption, strict access controls, clear audit trails so you know who accessed what data, when, and just as importantly, companies need to be able to explain in plain language, not text speak, how these AI systems reach their conclusions. And critically, employees need a clear process to appeal or ask for a human review if they think an AI-driven decision is wrong or unfair.
Okay, really important points on bias and privacy. Let's pivot now to the ultimate question for many listeners, the bottom line. If someone commits to this kind of roadmap, maybe 12 to 18 months, what's the quantifiable return on investment? What kind of numbers should they expect?
Well, we can break it down into roughly three areas. First, those productivity gains we talked about. If HR staff can redirect, say, 25% of their time away from routine admin tasks towards more strategic work, that's significant. That's time they can spend on culture, complex talent planning, things that add much more value than just processing forms. Second, the direct turnover savings. The sources give a pretty compelling example. Take a company with 1,000 employees, average salary $75K. If they can reduce turnover by just 5% using these AI-driven EX improvements, that saves them around $750,000 a year. And that's mostly just in direct replacement costs. That's real money freed up for investment elsewhere.
$750,000 for a 5% drop. Okay, and what about the wider impact on the company's overall financial health?
Yeah, there's a broader profit impact too. Because engaged employees are more productive, drive better customer outcomes, all that stuff we mentioned. Even a relatively small improvement, like a 0.5% bump in overall profitability. For a company doing $100 million in revenue, that's another $500,000 a year. So when you add up productivity, turnover savings, and profit impact, you can build a really strong ROI case that resonates with finance leaders.
And these aren't just hypothetical numbers, right? The sources mentioned some actual success stories. There was that large pharma company managing thousands of scientists, 6,000 plus, with a tiny L&D team of only 10 people. How?
Automation, pure and simple. They automated huge chunks of the training lifecycle, compliance tracking, even leadership support resources. That kind of scale is only possible with smart systems.
And the Telstra example, Australia's big telco.
All right, Telstra. They estimated saving around 10 million Australian dollars just by using their internal chatbot called Cody. It handled a massive volume of internal support questions, freeing up human agents for more complex issues. When you scale these systems effectively, the financial payoff can be enormous.
So based on all this, what's a realistic timeline? When can organizations expect to actually see that ROI materializing?
You'll likely see those initial productivity gains, the quick wins, pretty fast, maybe within 3 to 6 months. Things feel more efficient quickly. But the bigger, measurable ROI, where you're really banking those significant six-figure savings from reduced turnover and increased profit, that typically takes shape within 12 to 18 months. That's usually enough time to get the systems fully implemented, integrated, and scaled across the key parts of the business.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. What's the big takeaway for you listening? It seems clear the advantage goes to companies that move decisively but also thoughtfully. It's not just about buying the latest AI tech. It's about strategic, phased implementation, really focusing on transparency and getting your people ready for the change.
That's absolutely right. AI is here to augment human capabilities, not replace them entirely. It elevates HR pros from administrative tasks to becoming strategic partners focused on culture, talent strategy, complex problem solving. And honestly, the biggest risk in all of this, it's probably not the technology failing. It's more likely adoption failure because of poor change management or because employees don't trust the system due to a lack of transparency.
Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with, something to mull over as you consider your own next steps. Our sources briefly mention advanced applications down the road, things like using predictive AI to potentially identify future health risks for employees or pinpointing specific skill gaps years in advance. So the question is, what deeper systems, both ethically and technically, would your organization need to start putting in place today to even be ready for that kind of deeply integrated, highly individualized approach to managing careers and wellness tomorrow? That question perhaps points to the true long-term vision of becoming an experience-first organization.